many Canadians have actually noticed that the quality of their dairy products has changed.
It's being called Buttergate. Hundreds of consumers in Canada are crying foul on the dairy industry for using palm oil supplements in cow feed, and it's allegedly changing the consistency and the quality of the butter they're buying.
I investigated 7 of Canada's most popular butter brands. What I found behind the labels shocked me. Canadian grocery dollars flowing directly to a privately held French family empire, manufacturers hidden behind retailer logos that the CFIA does not require them to disclose. Vegetable oil quietly blended into dairy fat and sold at pure butter prices. And 2 of Canada's largest grocery conglomerates running the same concealment playbook simultaneously. Here is what nobody tells you when you reach into that dairy case. The brand name on a butter package does not tell you who made it. It does not tell you where the money goes. And it does not tell you what is actually inside. 7 brands. Failing Canadian shoppers. 2 that actually earned their place in your fridge. What is in yours right now? Drop a comment with the brand you're buying. Brand 1. Lactantia Butter. You have bought it your entire life. Maybe your mother bought it before you. The yellow packaging. The name that sounds like it belongs in a Canadian dairy case. Lactantia has been on Canadian refrigerator shelves for generations. It feels domestic. It feels familiar. It feels like it belongs here. The profits do not belong here. They belong to France. Lactantia is owned by Groupe Lactalis, a privately held French dairy conglomerate headquartered in Laval in northwestern France. The largest dairy company in the world by revenue. Operating in more than 50 countries, controlled entirely by the Bézier family. No public financials, no disclosed breakdown of what leaves each country they operate in. No accountability to Canadian shareholders because there are no Canadian shareholders. There is a French family. And every block of Lactantia butter purchased at every Loblaws and Sobeys and Walmart across Canada contributes to their fortune. Here is how it happened. Parmalat Canada owned Lactantia from 1997 onward. In 2011, Groupe Lactalis acquired Parmalat in a takeover valued at roughly 2.5 billion euros. Parmalat Canada became Lactalis Canada. Lactantia's ownership transferred accordingly. No announcement in the dairy case. No change to the packaging. The yellow block stayed exactly where it was. The profit destination changed completely. The cream is Canadian. The dairy farmers supplying the milk may be entirely domestic. None of that changes where the revenue goes once it leaves your wallet. It travels up through Lactalis Canada to a privately held French empire that discloses nothing about what it extracts from each market it operates in. For seniors who have bought Lactantia for 40 years because it was always just there, that loyalty has been quietly monetized by a family in France. For Canadian families trying to support domestic agriculture with their grocery dollars, Lactantia is the most misleading block in the dairy case. But here is who is really buying this block. Canadians who never had a reason to question it. People for whom Lactantia is simply the butter. Always has been. Always will be. That assumption is worth 2.5 billion euros to Groupe Lactalis. Your fix. The cream is Canadian. The company is not. There are 2 brands at the end of this video where both are true. Go check the butter in your fridge right now. The next brand hides something even more fundamental. You cannot find out who made it, because the label does not tell you. Brand 2. President's Choice Butter. The packaging is clean. The price sits just above the no-name line at Loblaws, Real Canadian Superstore, and No Frills. It signals quality without requiring anyone to document what that quality actually consists of. You put it in the cart because it felt like the responsible middle ground choice. Better than the cheapest option. Cheaper than the premium brands. Sensible. Here is the problem at the center of every President's Choice product. The manufacturer is not disclosed. Who made this butter? Which creamery churned it? Which dairy operation supplied the cream? Which facility is responsible for the block currently sitting in your refrigerator? You cannot answer those questions from the label. Because the label does not tell you. The CFIA does not require it to. Health Canada sets a regulatory floor for what can be called butter, and President's Choice Butter meets that floor. What it does not meet is any reasonable standard of transparency for a product this simple. Butter is cream and salt. The entire accountability chain for that product should be traceable in 2 sentences. The creamery that churned it. The dairy cooperative that supplied the cream. President's Choice gives you neither. It gives you a logo and a price point, and the implicit trust that the Weston family's sourcing decisions are sound. The Weston family owns Loblaw Companies Limited, one of the wealthiest corporate dynasties in Canada, and the President's Choice private label is their margin maximization tool across thousands of product categories. Butter is one of them. The premium over no name purchases a different label, not a documented upgrade in sourcing or production standards. For informed shoppers who specifically chose President's Choice over the cheapest option because they believed they were getting something better documented, that belief is the product, not the butter. But here is who is really buying this block. Label readers, careful shoppers, people who thought the premium over no name was purchasing accountability. It was purchasing a different logo, nothing more. Your fix. If a butter label cannot tell you who made it, that silence is the only answer you need. Hit subscribe. What is coming next involves a brand trusted for decades by Atlantic Canadian families, and a corporate story that is running the exact same playbook from a different head office. Brand 3, Compliments Butter. You picked it up at Sobeys, maybe IGA, maybe Freshco. The Compliments label sits in the dairy case the same way it sits in every other aisle, quietly, confidently, with that particular Canadian familiarity that does not ask to be questioned. Atlantic Canadian families reach for it without thinking. Prairie households grab it alongside everything else in the weekly shop. It feels like the sensible choice from a brand that has always just been there. It is running the same playbook as the brand we just examined. Different retailer. Same accountability gap. Compliment. Butter is owned by Sobeys Inc., a subsidiary of Empire Company Limited. Over $28 billion in annual revenue. And the Compliments private label is their version of what President's Choice is to Loblaw. A retailer logo sitting in front of a manufacturer they are not required to name and have chosen not to name. Here is what the Compliments butter label does not tell you. Who made it? Which creamery churned the cream? Which facility is responsible for the block in your fridge? The manufacturer is entirely concealed behind the retailer logo. The CFIA does not require Empire Company to disclose it. So they do not. This matters in a way that goes beyond transparency for its own sake. Loblaw and Sobeys together are Canada's retail duopoly. Two of Canada's 3 largest grocery companies are both selling butter under private labels with hidden manufacturers. That means when you reach for either President's Choice or Compliments butter, you are trusting a retailer's undisclosed sourcing decision with no ability to verify what that decision actually was. For Atlantic Canadian families who have trusted Compliments across every product category for 30 years, the butter aisle is no different. Empire Company has built its entire private label strategy on that trust, and they have never published the producer name that would let you evaluate whether that trust is warranted. But here is who is really buying this block. Loyal Canadians. People who believe that a brand this familiar in this many aisles must have earned its place through quality. Familiarity is not a quality standard. It is a marketing asset. Empire Company knows the difference even if the label does not show it. Your fix. 2 retailers. 2 hidden manufacturers. 1 pattern. The 2 brands at the end of this video show you their entire supply chain, because they have nothing to hide. The next brand kept its Western Canadian name and lost its Western Canadian soul to one of the largest dairy consolidations in Canadian history. Brand 4. Dairyland Butter. You grew up with it in Western Canada. The name on the milk carton, the name on the cream, the name on the butter block in every BC and Prairie grocery store for as long as you can remember. Dairyland feels like Western Canada. It feels like the farms outside of Abbotsford and the flat prairie fields past Saskatoon. It feels independent, local, yours. The brand stayed, the independence did not. Dairyland is now part of the Saputo portfolio. Saputo Incorporated is a Montreal-based dairy company that trades on the Toronto Stock Exchange and operates across 5 countries on 4 continents. It is one of the largest dairy consolidations in Canadian history, and Dairyland sits inside that portfolio alongside Scotsburn, Baxter, Nielsen, and dozens of other regional Canadian dairy names that Saputo has absorbed through successive rounds of acquisition. Each one kept its regional name. Each one lost its regional independence. Each one now contributes its revenue to a multinational shareholder base that extends well beyond the communities those brands were built to serve. When a Western Canadian family reaches for Dairyland butter at Save-On-Foods or Safeway, they are not supporting a Western Canadian dairy operation. They are contributing to the revenue of a company whose scale and ownership structure have long since outgrown the prairie identity the Dairyland name still carries. But there is a formulation concern worth raising as well. The ingredient disclosure for Dairyland: unsalted butter notes that annatto may be present. Annatto is a coloring agent. Real butter made from the cream of pasture-fed cows develops its golden color naturally from beta-carotene present in fresh grass. When annatto appears anywhere in a butter's ingredient disclosure, even conditionally, it signals that color is being managed rather than earned. The visual signal of quality and the actual source of that quality are not necessarily the same thing. For Western Canadian families who reach for Dairyland specifically because it feels like a local choice, the corporate structure behind that label has not been local for a long time. For seniors in BC and the prairies who have bought this block for decades out of regional loyalty, that loyalty is now flowing into a multinational portfolio. But here is who is really buying this block: Western Canadians who associate the name with the land they live on. People who never had a reason to look up who owns it now. The name is still Western Canadian. The ownership is not your fix. Regional branding is not regional ownership. Check who holds the brand before you credit the purchase to your community. Hit subscribe now. The next brand is selling you vegetable oil in a dairy package and calling it butter. Brand 5, Foothills. Creamery Butter Blend. The packaging looks honest. Alberta imagery. Creamery language. The kind of branding that suggests someone in a small operation is churning real cream the way it has always been done. You picked it up at your local Alberta grocery store, feeling good about supporting something regional and straightforward and close to home. Turn it over. Read the ingredient panel. Foothills Creamery sells what it calls a butter margarine blend. Real butter combined with vegetable oil, marketed primarily on its spreadability. The front of the package talks about real Foothills Creamery butter. What it does not talk about with equivalent prominence is the vegetable oil sitting beside that butter in the formulation. And here is the detail that should stop you in the aisle. The specific type of vegetable oil is not clearly identified on the product listing reviewed for this investigation. Real butter combined with an oil of unspecified origin sold under a creamery brand built on Alberta dairy heritage. Here is why that matters. Butter spreads straight from the fridge when something has been added to lower its melting point at cold temperatures. That something is vegetable oil. The engineering solution to hard refrigerator butter is not better cream or a more careful churning process. It is processed oil added to dairy fat to change its physical properties. The Kraft Dairy imagery on the front of the Foothills package and the vegetable oil on the ingredient panel are telling you two different stories about the same product. The Foothills block butter is a separate and simpler product from the blend. The two share shelf space, branding, and packaging identity. They are not the same thing, and the blend is positioned in a way that makes that distinction easy to miss if you are not reading the ingredient panel carefully. For Alberta families proud of local dairy and reaching for Foothills because regional feels clean, the blend is not what that regional pride implies. For health-conscious shoppers who associate creamery language with pure dairy, the vegetable oil in this formulation is doing work the front of the package never acknowledges. Take a close look at what is really sitting in that tub. Albertans who trust the regional story. Families who grab the spreadable format without realizing it was a different product category entirely. The Kraft story is real. The pure butter story is not. Your fix. If it spreads straight from the fridge, something was added. Read the ingredient panel before the front of the package reads, You. The next brand is a genuine Canadian cooperative with a genuinely clean block and a spreadable format that quietly adds canola to that cooperative story. Brand 6. Galia Spreadable Butter. You found it and felt good about it. Galia is a Canadian cooperative. The farmers own it. The profits stay in Canada. The name is on the block butter and the spreadable tub, and both feel like the right choice for a Canadian shopper who has done their homework and wants their grocery dollars to support domestic agriculture. The block is fine. The tub is a different product. Galia Foods. Cooperative is genuinely Canadian, established in Ontario, member-owned. Profits distributed to Canadian dairy farmers rather than foreign shareholders or retail conglomerate earnings. That cooperative structure is meaningfully different from Lactantia routing revenue to France or President's Choice funneling margin to the Weston family. When you buy Galia block butter, you are making a choice that keeps value within the Canadian dairy farming community. That is real, and it matters. But the spreadable tub is not the same product as the block, and this is where the cooperative story and the ingredient panel start telling different stories. Galia spreadable butter contains canola oil. The same engineering logic applies here that applies to every spreadable format butter on the Canadian market. Dairy fat is solid at refrigerator temperatures. To make it pliable straight from the fridge without sitting on the counter, the melting point of the fat must be lowered. Canola oil lowers it. The result spreads easily and feels premium and convenient. It is also no longer pure butter. It is a butter and oil blend sold under a cooperative brand whose Canadian ownership story is entirely genuine and whose spreadable formulation does not match the purity that story implies. For health-conscious shoppers who specifically sought out Galia because cooperative meant clean, the spreadable tub is not the product that cooperative story applies to. For families who grabbed the tub because it was convenient without realizing the block and the tub are formulated differently, the distinction is one the packaging does not make obvious. Here is the truth about who is really reaching for this tub. Informed Canadian shoppers. People who did their research. People who found a Canadian cooperative and thought the job was done. The cooperative is real. The canola oil is also real. Both things are true at the same time. Your fix. Buy the block. The cooperative story and the ingredient panel tell the same story when you choose the block. The tub adds a chapter the front of the package never mentions. One brand left on the avoid list, and it is the most complicated entry on this entire investigation. Brand 7, Natrel Butter. This is the most honest entry on this list, and the most complicated one. Natrel is real Canadian dairy. AgroPur is a real Canadian cooperative, founded in Quebec in 1938. Member-owned. Profits distributed to Canadian dairy farmers. The butter itself is clean. Cream and salt. Nothing added. No vegetable oil. No annatto. No concealed manufacturer. No French parent company collecting revenue through a subsidiary structure with no public accountability. So why is it on this list? Because scale changes things, and AgroPur's scale has changed considerably. AgroPur Cooperative generates roughly $9 billion in annual revenue. It operates processing facilities across Canada and the United States. It is one of the largest dairy cooperatives in North America, and the cooperative structure that meaningfully distinguishes a small member-owned operation from an investor-owned corporation starts to look different when that cooperative is running a $9 billion institutional operation across 2 countries with the structural complexity that revenue level requires. The distance between the dairy farmer who produced the milk and the consumer who bought the natural block at Metro or Sobeys has stretched. Not because AgroPur abandoned its cooperative principles, but because at $9 billion in annual revenue, those principles are being expressed through an institutional apparatus whose scale looks increasingly similar to the corporate structures the cooperative model was designed to offer an alternative to. This is the most opinion-based placement on this list, and it deserves that acknowledgement directly. The natural butter product is clean. The AgroPur cooperative ownership is genuine. Canadian dairy farmers are members and beneficiaries. For shoppers who want to support a Canadian dairy cooperative and are choosing between Natrel and a foreign-owned corporate brand, Natrel is the better choice without question. The placement here is a scale and proximity argument, not a formulation argument, not a corporate betrayal argument. The 2 brands at the end of this video are smaller, closer to their farms, more traceable from the ingredient panel to the field where the cream originated. But here is who is really buying this block. Premium shoppers who pay more because Natrel signals quality and Canadian ownership. People who are making a genuinely better choice than most of the brands on this list. They deserve to know there are 2 options that take that choice even further. Your fix. Natrel is not the enemy. It is the ceiling of what corporate-scale cooperative dairy looks like. The 2 brands ahead set a different standard entirely. Go check your fridge right now. If any of these 7 brands are sitting in your dairy drawer, this video just gave you a reason to reconsider. 7 brands. 1. Routing your grocery dollars to a privately held French family empire. 2. Hiding their manufacturers behind retailer logos because the CFIA does not require them to disclose it. 1 regional name absorbed into a multinational portfolio that stretches across 4 continents. 1 creamery selling vegetable oil, blended into dairy fat under a craft dairy identity. 1 cooperative whose spreadable tub adds canola to an otherwise clean Canadian story. And 1 cooperative so large the distance between the farm and your fridge has stretched further than the cooperative model was designed to allow. Butter is cream. That is the entire recipe. It has been the same recipe for centuries, and 7 brands found 7 different ways to complicate something that should never have been complicated in the first place. You still need butter, every single day, on your toast, in your pan, at your table. The question was never whether to buy it. The question is whether the money you spend on it stays in Canada and goes to the farmers who produce the milk and results in a product that is exactly what its label implies. 2 brands answered yes to every one of those questions. Here they are. Safe Pick 1. Sterling Creamery Butter. 7 brands of concealment, corporate routing, and vegetable oil blends. This is what the opposite looks like. Sterling Creamery is based in Sterling, Ontario in Hastings County, a small eastern Ontario community with agricultural roots that go back generations. Acquired by Gay Leo Foods Cooperative in November 2016, meaning it operates as part of one of Ontario's largest member-owned dairy cooperatives. Profits flow to Canadian dairy farmers, not to France, not to the Weston family, not to a multinational shareholder base spread across 4 continents. The ingredient list is cream and salt, or just cream for the unsalted variety. Nothing else. No annatto, no canola oil, no concealed manufacturer, no corporate parent collecting revenue through a subsidiary chain with no public accountability. Available at major grocery chains across Ontario and increasingly in other provinces. Price ranges from $5 to $7 depending on size. For every Canadian family that wants block butter that is genuinely just butter from a genuinely Canadian cooperative structure, Sterling is the most straightforward answer in this entire investigation. Safe Pick 2. Organic Meadow Butter. If you want certified organic with every step of the supply chain independently verified, this is your block. Organic Meadow is a certified organic dairy cooperative operating in Ontario. Member farms produce milk under Canadian organic standards, a regulatory and certification framework requiring independent third-party auditing from the field through the processing facility. The cooperative model means the member farmers own the operation and share in its returns. Organic certification sits on top of that cooperative structure. No synthetic pesticides in the feed or pasture, no routine antibiotics. Welfare standards exceeding conventional dairy certification requirements. The ingredient list is organic cream and sea salt. 2 ingredients, certified and audited by independent bodies on a documented schedule. Available at Loblaw banners, Sobeys banners, and health food retailers across Ontario and increasingly other provinces. Price ranges from $7 to $9 depending on size. For pregnant women, cancer survivors, and families who want butter certified to be exactly what its label says from farmers who own the cooperative producing it, Organic Meadow is the clearest recommendation this investigation can make. 4 things to check before buying any butter in any Canadian grocery store. First, the ingredient list. Real butter contains cream and salt, or just cream for unsalted. If the ingredient list includes canola oil, sunflower oil, or any other vegetable oil, you are holding a blend, not butter. Second, the producer. If the package does not identify the creamery or dairy operation that made the product, the accountability for what is inside cannot be traced from the label. Private label butters from major retailers are manufactured under undisclosed contracts. You are trusting the retailer's sourcing decision without any visibility into what that decision actually is. Third, the corporate ownership. The brand name does not tell you where the money goes. Lactantia is French. President's Choice is Loblaw. Compliments is Sobeys. Dairyland is Saputo. Knowing who owns the brand tells you where your grocery dollar travels after it leaves your wallet. Fourth, block versus spreadable. If it spreads straight from the refrigerator without sitting on the counter first, something was added to make that possible. That something is vegetable oil. Leave the block on the counter in a covered butter dish. The spreadability problem has always had a simple solution that does not require buying an oil blend. 7 brands that failed the Canadian shopper. Lactantia, sending your grocery dollars to France. President's Choice and Compliments, hiding their manufacturers behind retailer logos. Dairyland absorbed into Saputo's multinational machine while keeping its Western Canadian name. Foothills blending vegetable oil into dairy fat under a craft creamery identity. Gay Lea's spreadable tub adding canola to an otherwise clean cooperative story. And Natral carrying genuine Canadian ownership at a scale that stretches the farmer-to-fridge connection thin. 2 brands that passed. Sterling Creamery and Organic Meadow. Both Canadian cooperatives. Both clean ingredient lists. Both transparent about who made the product and where the money goes. Go check your fridge. Read the ingredient list. Find the producer name. If you cannot find it, that is your answer. Hit subscribe. Share this with someone who buys butter every single week without thinking about it. Know where it comes from. Keep the money here. Choose Canadian.